The San Remo Conference has become almost a forgotten event in world history. However, it is without a doubt one of the three most important world events in the national history of the Jewish people during the course of the past 1,500 years. The text of the San Remo resolution was buried in the British archives until Jerusalem attorney Howard Grief published the resolution as part of an article in Nativ in 2003. The resolution and Grief's thesis, which were picked up online by Israel's Moledet Party, then spread like wildfire on the information highway. Howard Grief has spent more than 25 years researching Israel's legal foundation under international law and has become a leading world expert on the subject. I'd like to introduce Mr. Howard Grief.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this wonderful conference that commemorates the 90th anniversary of the first San Remo Peace Conference. The San Remo Peace Conference was called to discuss the terms of peace with the defeated Ottoman Turkish Empire. And it was attended by the top-level leaders of Britain, France, Italy, and Japan. What the San Remo resolution decided was that the Balfour Declaration, which was issued 3 years earlier by Britain as a policy statement, would now become accepted as the constitutional basis for governing Palestine. This was accomplished on April 24th, the first session devoted to Palestine. The conference actually opened ceremonially on the 18th of April, and it lasted until the 26th, but only 2 sessions were devoted to the question of Palestine. The first significant decision that was taken was the adoption of the Balfour Declaration as I just said, as the basis for governing or administering Palestine in the future under the mandatory regime which had just been instituted and adopted in the Treaty of Versailles that was ratified in January of 1920. That was a very significant development because the Balfour Declaration was in effect the Magna Carta of the Jewish people, the charter of its freedom, and it became a binding act of international law as a result of the adoption of the San Remo resolution. And the following day, 2 things were discussed. The resolution itself consisted of provisions relating both to Palestine, also to Syria, and to Mesopotamia, and it is the foundation document for the entire Middle East that we know today. And in regard to Palestine's boundaries, they were discussed at San Remo, and it was decided that they were supposed to follow the historical or biblical frontiers of Palestine in the Second Temple period or in the First Temple period, based on the work of the Scottish biblical scholar George Adam Smith, who had written an atlas on the historical geography of Palestine, and this was used by General Edmund Allenby and also by David Orr George to determine what the historical boundaries were. However, those boundaries were not fixed or determined in the San Remo resolution. All that was decided was that they would follow the historical boundaries, and it would take a separate act several months later, actually in December of 1920, to fix the original boundaries of Palestine. In addition to the question of borders that were not fixed at the San Remo Peace Conference, the mandates were distributed, and one mandate was conferred on Great Britain in regard to Palestine, one in regard to Mesopotamia, which became Iraq, and one in regard to Syria. Now, the significance of the San Remo resolution was that it, in effect, created the Jewish state. The Jewish state draws its legal existence from the San Remo resolution, as well as the fact that sovereignty, and this is the core thesis of my book, sovereignty was devolved on the Jewish people, was vested in the Jewish people as a result of the San Remo resolution, which transformed the Balfour Declaration, as I said before, into a binding act of international law. So I wish to repeat again. The State of Israel draws its legal existence not from the partition resolution of the United Nations General Assembly of November 29, 1947, but from the San Remo resolution. Now, this fact has been hardly known or publicized. You see, the San Remo resolution was not signed. It represented the clauses that were to be inserted in a peace treaty. And the San Remo resolution was adopted by the Supreme Council of the Principal Allied Powers and then inserted into the Treaty of Sèvres, which was signed 4 months later. Sèvres is not far from Paris, and that was called the Treaty of Sèvres. Unfortunately, the Treaty of Sèvres, though it was signed by Ottoman Turkey, was never ratified because there was a revolution in Turkey, and Ataturk took power, and he denounced the Treaty of Sèvres, but did not change any aspects in regard to the global political and legal settlement made in regard to Palestine and the rest of the non-Turkish provinces of the Ottoman Empire outside of Anatolia. So the San Remo resolution, although it was not ratified in the Treaty of Sèvres, it was then placed in the mandate for Palestine in the first 3 recitals of the preamble, and in that format became accepted by the League of Nations, was confirmed by the League of Nations by 52 states in the year 1922, separately by the United States in a treaty it signed with the United Kingdom in 1924. The San Remo resolution formed the constitutional basis for the mandate for Palestine. The mandate for Palestine was constructed on the basis of the San Remo resolution, and it had to conform to what was intended by that resolution. That is, to bring into existence a future independent Jewish state. And unfortunately, as we all know, the events that happened afterwards, millions of Jews perished, millions of Jews who could have come to Palestine were not allowed to come, and all the problems resulted from there. But the grant of the right of legal ownership, the right of sovereignty, was vested in the Jewish people. I'm talking about de jure sovereignty as of that date, the date of April 24, April 25, 1920. That is the significance of the San Remo resolution.